Have you ever stared at a line item on a credit card statement and felt the floor drop out from under you? It wasn't the amount that made my heart stop. It was the name of the place. Alinea. A 3-Michelin-star temple of gastronomy on North Halsted Street in Chicago. Place my wife Jessica and I had dreamed of going to for anniversaries but never did. The charge was for 2, and I was not one of them. The date was from a Tuesday night 3 weeks ago. A night she told me she was working late, eating a sad desk salad. That single line of text on a PDF, glowing on my monitor in the silent darkness of my home office, was the loose thread that would unravel everything. I pulled on it and my entire world came undone. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel. Tell us where you're from and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. For a week, I said nothing. I watched her. Every morning, she'd kiss me goodbye, her lips tasting of the expensive peppermint toothpaste I bought. Her smile was a masterpiece of casual deception. "Have a good day, honey," she'd chirp. Her voice the same melody I'd fallen in love with a decade ago. But now, it sounded like a recording, a playback of a life that was no longer real. The humiliation was a physical weight. I'd sit in meetings, my mind a million miles away, picturing her laughing with him in that ridiculously expensive restaurant. Did she order the tasting menu? Did he make her laugh the way I used to? The questions were a swarm of hornets in my skull. Her behavior, once I was looking for it, became a glaring neon sign. Her phone, once casually left on the kitchen counter, was now her constant companion, clutched in her hand like a religious artifact. It was always angled away from me, the screen dimming the second I walked into the room. She started working late more often, coming home smelling faintly of a cologne that wasn't mine in the crisp, cold Chicago night air. The discovery wasn't a single explosion. It was a series of quiet, brutal paper cuts. A receipt from the Peninsula Hotel bar tucked into her coat pocket. A phone call she answered with a panicked, "I'll call you back," her eyes darting towards me. She became a stranger in our home on Lakeshore Drive. The warmth that once filled our apartment was replaced by a chilling draft. She grew cold, then manipulative. When I'd ask where she was, her voice would harden. "Why are you checking up on me, David? Don't you trust me?" The gaslighting was so proficient, so seamless, it almost worked. She made me feel like the villain for questioning the obvious. Her and her lover, who I soon learned was a smug real estate developer named Mark she'd met through work, moved with an arrogant sense of invincibility. I once saw them from across the street. Getting into a black Mercedes near Millennium Park, he put his hand on the small of her back, and she leaned into him. A gesture so intimate and practiced, it felt like a knife in my gut. They thought they were untouchable. That was the night I broke. I drove aimlessly for hours, the city lights blurring through my tears. The man who believed in loyalty, in the vows we took on a sunny afternoon at the Chicago Botanic Garden, was gone. In his place was a hollowed-out shell, filled with a cold, quiet rage. The breakdown was my baptism. When I got home, the tears were gone. My mind was sharp, clear, and terrifyingly focused. My grief had crystallized into purpose. The game was on. I became a ghost in my own life. I bought a burner phone and a voice-activated recorder. I started documenting everything. Late nights, the flimsy excuses, the credit card statements that painted a vivid picture of her affair across the city's finest establishments. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop, who met me in a dingy diner in the Loop. He was expensive, but the photos he delivered a week later were priceless. Jessica and Mark, checking into the Thompson Chicago, their arms wrapped around each other. Jessica and Mark, kissing in a secluded corner of a parking garage. Proof. Hard, undeniable, and utterly devastating. My revenge wasn't going to be a screaming match in the living room. It was going to be a meticulously planned demolition. I contacted a shark of a divorce lawyer, a woman whose reputation was legendary in Cook County. We laid the traps. I quietly moved all our joint savings into a separate account, one Jessica had no access to. I documented her lavish spending on him, cross-referencing every charge with the PI's reports. The final piece of the puzzle was her annual charity gala, an event she chaired for the last 5 years. It was her crowning social achievement, an evening where she played the benevolent queen to Chicago's elite. This year I made a significant donation, enough to secure a 5-minute speaking slot. She was thrilled. "Oh, David, that's so generous," she'd said, kissing my cheek. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. The night of the gala, the ballroom at the Drake Hotel was glittering. Jessica was radiant in a gown that cost more than my first car, gliding through the room, accepting accolades. She had no idea she was the guest of honor at her own execution. When my name was called, I walked to the podium. I saw her in the front row, beaming next to her parents. I saw Mark at a table nearby, looking smug. I started by talking about integrity and trust. Then I looked directly at my wife. "My wife Jessica," I said, my voice echoing in the suddenly silent room, "is a master of appearances. She appears to be a devoted wife and a pillar of our community, but appearances, as we know, can be deceiving." A photo flashed on the giant screens behind me. It was her and Mark, kissing outside the hotel. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Another photo, them walking hand in hand. I let the images hang in the air. "For the last 6 months," I continued, my voice cold and steady, "while my wife has been accepting your donations, she has also been accepting the affections of this man, Mark, and funding their affair with our money." I gestured to the credit card statements blown up on the screen. Alinea, the Peninsula, the Thompson. It was all there. Jessica's face was a mask of horror, her skin as white as the tablecloths. Her father was on his feet, his face purple with rage. Mark had shrunk in his chair, his smugness evaporating into pure cowardice. I ended my speech by announcing I had filed for divorce that morning, citing adultery, and that all evidence had been submitted to the court. I walked off the stage without a backward glance. The aftermath was total. Jessica was socially and professionally obliterated. She was removed from the charity board. Her parents, pillars of their community, were mortified and disowned her. The divorce was swift and brutal. The prenup held, but the evidence of infidelity and misuse of marital funds meant she walked away with nothing but her clothes and the public shame that now clung to her like a second skin. I heard she left Chicago, moved somewhere small in the Midwest to escape the whispers. Mark's wife divorced him, taking him for everything he was worth. My revenge was complete. My life was a ruin, but I had one. I sold the apartment on Lakeshore Drive, the place filled with too many ghosts. Sometimes, late at night in my new sterile apartment, I look out at the city lights and feel nothing at all. The silence in my life now is louder than her lies ever were. The end.